Welcome back, hope all is well. Hey, it's Wayne, let's talk some games. So it was just recently announced that come September 2026, the Nintendo Switch 2 will be going up in price by 50 USD. And with the conversation about video games getting more and more expensive, I just figured I'd throw my 2 cents in. So as of recording May 2026, the AAA industry standard for video game pricing is $70 to $80, with the Nintendo being the one to raise the standard to $80 after dropping Mario Kart for the Switch 2. So in comparison, back in 1990, they were selling Super Mario Bros. 3 for $44.99 USD. Today, that same game would be $113 USD. Considering the fact that physical media was the only option of gaming back then, a lot came packed in with the standard edition. We're talking manuals, reversible covers, cases, and the full game in the case. Nowadays in the mid-2020s, you'd be hard-pressed to find anything more than a code in the box, or as Nintendo introduced the game key cards, which, quick rundown, are physical cartridges with licensed keys on them. So the first time you use that game, you need to connect to the internet, download that game from the eShop, install it. It's not on the card, but you need that physical card inside the system to play the game, which maintains the ability to sell it secondhand for the resale market, but it doesn't add anything to the preservation of the game long term, because at its core, it's still a digital copy, which I wouldn't mind if those physical cases came with those same paper manuals, adverts, little collectibles, or even reversible artworks, which you'd still be hard pressed to find unless it's a deluxe or collector's edition. Maybe a day one edition if you're lucky to get it before the scalpers, which personally I'm indifferent to because most of my library is digital at this point, but I do like to collect physical games of games that I really enjoy and or I have sentimental value to, like Pokemon, or even more recently I wanted to pick up a physical version of Pragmata, but the fact that it's a key card really deterred me from picking it up. And Nintendo released the specs for the cartridges on the Switch 2 editions. At max capacity, it can hold up to 64 gigs. Anything beyond that, it needs to be on a key card. Cool. So Pragmata, I believe, is no more than like 37 gigs. It's still on a key card, which I don't know if it's publisher, developer choice, or Nintendo choice. Either way, that's not the point. Personally, I'm 50-50 with it because at this point, most of my library is digital, but I do like to get the physical copies and collect the games that I really love and enjoy. So when a game does come out that I know can fit on a full cartridge and it's a key card, I can empathize with people who really lean into physical collections a lot, especially for the sake of preservation, because I can't name the number of JRPGs I found sitting in clearance or I bought secondhand that ended up being some of my favorite games at the time. So it's disheartening that even though we're getting less with the physical releases as far as game content, we're getting less as far as physical memorabilia to even preserve the memory of the games themselves. But prices keep going up and it feels like the value keeps going down. Big ups to Amazon and Walmart for matching their physical prices with the digital prices. I can only speak on it, and I play on Nintendo. And there are these 2 games called Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. 2 critically acclaimed games. Some of my friends would say some of the best games ever made, top 5, if not top 3. Cool, respect. As I've said before, I've personally not gotten into any other Nintendo IPs outside of Pokemon. But this year with the Switch 2, I'm trying to expand my palette. Cool. These games are each old. Like, Tears of the Kingdom is the sequel in the more recent game, but Breath of the Wild is at least like a 7-8-year-old game at this point. Nintendo, there's this joke, Nintendo games don't go down in price. Why is that a joke? Even secondhand, I understand resale value. It's full game on card, cool. I got the Switch 2. I seen that the GameCube came with the Pokemon Coliseum and XD Gale of Darkness. Some of my favorite Pokemon games. I need that locking in. Now with that expansion pass, it comes with a free Switch 2 edition of both those Zelda games. Nice. You would think easy peasy. Go cop that, do your homework, cool. But for $60 on a 7-8-year-old game, you're bugging out. Nintendo dropped the price. You copy and paste Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green for $20. No online multiplayer? The only physical release is a special edition in Japan with code in box. Gives you 2 game boxes for each of the versions, but no game inside, just a code. Then I'm guessing publishers and developers are just saving coin using the key cards instead of putting games that aren't even close to the 60 gig mark key card. I understand maybe you want to save some coin in one side, but if you invested into the actual physical thing with the case, if you treated the casing of the art like the art itself, maybe you sell more physical copies and don't just make them special limited. Do it, commit, lock in. It doesn't have to be anything flashy crazy, but like something. And that applies to the key cards too, especially if you think anybody's going to be comfortable paying $70, $80+ for a bootleg whatchamacallit of a physical release. And physical will always reign supreme until you can somehow guarantee my digital purchase of today is a lifetime guarantee access hands-free tomorrow. Even me now leaning into a digital library, bro, storage is expensive too. As of recording, I have about 77 games in my library, and the terabyte card in my Switch 2, and I believe a 512 in my OLED. So right now I can fit all my games on my Switch 2, but this is before Final Fantasy Rebirth drops, bro. And that's 100-something gigs right there. I have a backup 256 that ideally, when all 3 parts of Final Fantasy come out, I complete them, I could just move them over to that SD card. But bruh, that's a big chunk of change to invest into just storage. You know how many physical games I could have bought with that and not have been worried? But all the games, or majority of the games I want, aren't real physical, true physical releases. So it shoehorns me into a position where, yeah, you got to lean more into digital libraries anyway, because even if I rack up and got key cards of all the games I wanted, I still need to invest into the space to store the games because none of the game is on the key cards themselves. And that leads into the practicality of me keeping my Switch 1, because ideally in the future I have all my Switch 2 games there on the Switch 2 and all my Switch 1 games on my Switch 1. And alternatively, you have the option to download, archive, delete, and re-download games, but when those servers go down, you can't download the games that aren't already on your system. And that's why inherently I believe that digital games should be cheaper, because if you can't guarantee lifetime access for this purchase, then I need a refund. Albeit Nintendo is probably the best platform when it comes to backwards compatibility, not including Steam. And with the Switch 1 transitioning to the Switch 2 era, I can give them credit where credit is due. Like, a lot of good games have also been getting their Switch 1 versions that also have the full game on cart. A few of those games also have inherent upgrade packs where if you play that cart on your Switch 2, it does get a boost in resolution. But on the flip side, not all games have compatible save data between the 2 consoles. For example, Digimon Time Stranger is coming to Nintendo Switch, and that game has a Switch 1 edition full game on cart, Switch 2 edition game key card. Both physical editions don't include any option for the deluxe or the ultimate edition bundle. That's exclusively to the digital titles on Nintendo. So if I want the DLC plus the game physical, I have to buy that separately. That's out of line. So that pushes me to lean towards the digital copy, right? But the save data between the 2 different versions of the game are not compatible. And unlike most Pokemon trainers, I know how to read, so I do my due diligence, right? And thankfully, the publishers give us those boosts in frame rates and resolution if you play the Switch 1 edition on your Switch 2 console. Cool. Call me bougie. I don't like bringing my Switch 2 out the crib too often. Sometimes I like loading the game on my Switch 1 and taking it to go. But now there's an extra layer of friction when it comes to my purchases because I have to double check for this compatibility in between softwares. And naturally, there's gonna come a time where we phase out the Switch 1 and games are only being developed on the Switch 2. But what happens after that when we're on the Switch 3 or the Switch 3DS and the Switch 2 is now the old console, and most, if not 80 to 90% of the library are key cards? And what happens when the servers are down and these key cards lose their value because we can't download the games anymore? So at that point, you're still stuck having to invest in more storage if you want the convenience that digital games are supposed to offer. Now, as I stated before, the Switch 2 will be going up in price come September 2026, and Nintendo's known to do different editions of their consoles throughout a generation. So my speculation on the situation is that expect to see a switch to OLED or a switch to Lite. Hopefully we don't get a digital only switch to, because that would cut down on the preservation of games on the physical side. But honestly, who knows, the way things are going, anything's possible. In the meantime, I'm gonna maintain my hybrid library. But where are you? Digital, physical? How do you feel? Leave a like, comment, let's talk about it.